All right. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to CMU CS Academy's CSEdWeek 2021 CMU Student Q&A session. I'm here with a number of CMU undergraduate students, and one of our team members, Stephanie, is going to run this session today. So Stephanie, I'll let you take it from here. Thanks.
Yeah, hi everyone. So welcome to the Why and What We Study with CS session of the CMU CS Academy EdWeek. My name is Stephanie, and I'm currently a sophomore studying CS and maybe a minor in comp bio. But yeah, I'll be passing it off to Maggie to give her introduction.
Hi everyone, I'm Maggie. I'm a senior studying computational biology at CMU. I've been on a project for quite a while, since 2018, and mostly I've been working on content, but I'm also working with outreach for this semester. Now I'll pass it to my friend Yumi.
Hello, I'm Yumi. I'm a senior studying human-computer interaction with a minor in game design. Yeah, I can pass it on to Helen.
Hello, my name is Helen. I'm a sophomore in information systems. I've worked with CS Academy for summer, but usually just do a bunch of CS stuff or dance stuff, I guess. I will pass this to Tate.
Hi everyone, I'm Tate. I'm a senior at CMU studying biological sciences and minoring in computer science, and I've been with CS Academy since my sophomore summer, and I've been on the web development team and the teacher outreach team. I'll pass it along to Caleb.
Yeah, hi, I'm Caleb. I'm a sophomore studying electrical and computer engineering, and that's actually all I have. I'll pass it to Sean.
My name is Sean. I'm a sophomore majoring in information system, currently working on outreach in CS Academy. Rohan, take it away.
Hi guys, I'm a junior at CMU and I'm studying artificial intelligence.
Yeah, so thank you so much for everyone that's coming here. And I guess a question that I'd like to kind of put up for everyone to answer is what kind of extracurriculars do you do? And these can be related to CS or they can be not related to CS at all. But we'd love to hear anything that you guys are currently doing and how that helps enrich what you're currently studying.
You can go first. So when I came to CMU, I found a passion for music, and so my main extracurriculars are I'm in the marching band and concert band, known as the Kilty Band because our uniforms feature kilts, and I'm also in the school's bagpipe and drum band as a drummer. So that's what I do. Oh, and also, I guess this counts as an extracurricular. I'm also a TA for one of the intro computer science classes.
I guess I can talk about too. Usually what I do in school is a lot of dancing. So there are multiple dance organizations on our campus, and I'm trying to be involved in as many as I can, which is I guess it's fun. Like CS is more on like heavier on the brain side, and then dance is more like heavier on like the physical side. And to keep up with the trend, I'm also in the same class, like I TA the same class as Tate. So that's fun.
And just for reference for everyone, the TAing is being a teacher assistant. So what happens is at the end of when somebody takes a class, they can do something called being a teaching assistant, where they essentially help other students taking the class with the content of the class. So it's a really great way to really understand what you're learning in the class, but also help your fellow classmates when you're helping them learn more about the class. So I guess another question, and this is a little bit more CS focused now, is I guess like what led you to choose a specific major or study of interest that you were pursuing, and why is it meaningful to you?
I could take that. I had a number of really influential family friends and like older friends that showed me what was possible in many different ranges of computer science, from like low-level engineering to software development. and that showed me like how interesting the idea of coding was. And then also, I think we might be like the first generation to really get interested in stuff on YouTube. That was definitely the case with like 3 Blue 1 Brown videos, all these really beautiful math videos that showed the beauty of different math and computer science topics.
I can also like take this question because when I started like college, that's my first time learning CS. Like before, I was more of like I was studying like subjects like psychology and high school, and realized, hey, maybe with computers we can solve more problems about brains and like complicated biological systems that's just like out of reach of like human our own like brain computing powers. So that was like a very sort of by chance I was led into like this CS and biology field, which I think it's great. It solves a lot of problem and it's still evolving just constantly.
On the note of solving problems, information systems and like the current world are filled with data, and the ability for us to analyze data seems to be very important. That's why I chose my major. Currently found it very enjoyable. I think Caleb, you're in ECE, if you want to talk about yours.
Yeah, I can. So in electrical and computer engineering, I do look at a lot of hardware problems, but I think computer science is just such an amazing tool, a tool to solve problems. Similar to Rohan was talking about like math. Math is an amazing tool to solve problems, but so is CS. CS allows you to solve problems that we just previously could not solve. And I think that's just the beauty of it, is that it's just this wonderful, amazing, malleable tool to solve problems.
Kind of like Maggie, I would say that I somewhat stumbled into CS by chance because I tried taking APCS in my senior year of high school, and then the teacher who taught it left, so I never took a CS class before coming to CMU. And so my freshman fall, I mostly took it to kind of experience it a little bit and fulfill a graduation requirement. And it ended up being the case that I really liked it and was good at it. And so I kept on taking one class, and then I took another class, and then it just kind of snowballed. Initially, I was going to try and do computational biology career-wise because I was already doing biology and was interested in it. And the more that I kind of dug into it, I realized that the reasons that I like biology were that the quantitative part, the quantitative parts of it, like genetics, kind of resemble like the basic functional principles of computer science. Like ATCG is kind of like zeros and ones in a lot of ways. And so I've elected to try and go to grad school for CS and switch to software engineering completely, go full circle.
For me, I'm kind of like a +1 to Maggie and Tate in that I was always interested in like technology and like computers, but never got a chance to take APCS or any computer science courses in high school. So I just perchance tried out computer science. And then while I was here, I found this field called human computer interaction, which is like one specific field in CS, where it's more about bridging the gap between all the different fields like psychology, design, learning science, anything you want basically, and then bridging it with technology, how to like make human or people like interact with computers in like a better, like more easy way, more like interesting ways. And then so yeah, and then in addition, I was always interested in games. Like I love playing games when I grew up. So that's why I'm minoring in game design. And that's like another way in which we can like explore how we can use computers and the computer science to help make people kind of interact with each other in a more interesting way, help people interact with computers in a more interesting way, such as like AR, VR, those are like growing fields right now. So yeah, I was just interested in how we can like facilitate like connections with both among people and with computers. So that's how I got interested in CS, and yeah, why I love it.
Yeah, thank you so much. Everyone had such cool reasons. And yeah, like I also kind of relate to that, stumbling upon it as well, with like the, just getting interested through comp bio and then going in with CS. So it's really cool to hear everyone's journey. And it is also cool because everyone here that's watching the live stream is probably starting with CS Academy, like middle, high school. So it's really awesome that you guys are all getting a nice head start. And this is kind of, I'm just interested for everyone, what's one of your favorite classes that has really led you to realize that you really are interested in CS? And please don't just give course numbers, try and explain a little bit about what the class has about it.
Yes, the class that kind of got me interested was just a high school class doing like Python programming. But I guess for me, I really liked it because it's like a brand new way of thinking. And then like before that, I was always thinking about like doing art stuff, even though I'm not good at it. Sorry. But then I think after taking that CS class, I was like, okay, maybe that's actually what I want to do because I can think of everything logically. With like a complete different lens. So that's why I really liked it.
Yeah, bouncing off of what Helen was saying, I really enjoyed a functional programming class that I took freshman year, which it's kind of hard to explain, but it's a very different way of thinking about normal programming, and it really opened my eyes to like the kind of like general thought processes that you can have, and that was very interesting. Even if I never use like some of the very minute stuff that I learned in that class, it will always be in my way of thinking, and I really appreciate that.
I can go next. Sorry, I thought I turned my camera off. My cat was attacking me. I had to put on slippers. So I would say the two classes that really kind of brought the most interest in CS to me were actually the first two that I took. So the first one was more of a general computer science class that kind of had a heavy emphasis on programming, at least at that time. And so we got to learn how to code in Python and got to learn about some other cool CS topics as well. Like how random numbers are generated and how the hardware works just on a really basic level. And so I really enjoyed that class. I was a teaching assistant for it for a couple semesters. And then the next one I took was called Fundamentals of Programming and Computer Science. It's the course that I'm still teaching. And that one was basically all about programming. And I think programming was really the part of computer science that I like the most because I felt like I was actually applying what I was learning into something that's very kind of very versatile, and it was very rewarding to see the project at the end of the semester where I took everything that I had learned, 100% of what I had learned had gone together and kind of worked into this game that I had designed. And so I think that was really rewarding, and I think it kind of really solidified my interest in computer science.
Adding on to what Tate said about the introduction to programming, that was the course that I enjoy the most. To me, like, when I came into CMU, computer science is that big term that like people all use that I have no idea about. And coming into that course, I actually realized programming and computer science can be fun and interactive. And being a teaching assistant, I realized like I have the ability to convey to people how computer science works, and it could be some topic that everyone could learn, including, I guess, people that's sitting in front of us. So I guess if anyone wants to add on to that.
Yeah, I'll add on to that because I also TA for the same class that Sean and Tate TA for. And I think that class was really amazing because, as Tate said, you start off knowing almost nothing and you work your way to building this gigantic project you spend roughly a month on. And it's just such a satisfying experience to go from almost nothing to a completed full project. Now, for me, that actually wasn't where it exactly started. For me, it actually started in high school with a robotics competition. It was kind of just, we were given this robotics kit and told, okay, build this robot with these constraints and do such and such. And now there was like 4 of us and the other 3 just wanted to grab hardware and keep building and screw driving and all that. And so I was naturally kind of left with the, okay, code it up, just like throw some code together. Now I'm there with this weird robot language that's kind of like C and kind of working my way through it. And similar to the class, went in with nothing, came in with a fully functioning robot that I did all the code for. And it's just that kind of satisfaction from going from nothing to, wow, I made this robot do something, like I did that. And you kind of just start to realize the potential of how programming can, you know, keep on growing as you get better at it. That kind of drove me to keep going with it.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like, I also really that like the intro to programming course that our friends have talked about. It's actually my first like very actual like programming course or CS course for that matter. But I also want to bring up that like I really enjoyed a theoretical CS class that I took like after in my sophomore year, because I think previously I've always had sort of this fear of like, you know, all the math and like the formal proofs and all that things that are difficult. So I was like, can I really do it? I don't really know. But like after that class, I was like, hey, I actually got a full, I don't know, like got used to like formulating problems that are specific and well-defined enough to be like, hey, I can actually solve it with like some existing computational tools or like some existing theories, and it's actually very fun. So it sort of led me to see another side of CS, which is like theoretical, but at the same time very interesting. And you can also like find out that actually like other disciplines like biology would interface with CS at those kind of dimensions. So it's also very fun. Yeah, just want to bring it up.
For me, I also +1 to the introduction to programming course everyone's talking about. That was my first official CS course. And I really appreciated how it's a bunch of like puzzles that you just like kind of like take a stab at using different perspectives and like taking different approaches. So I really like that problem solving aspect, which got me into CS a lot. But my other course is I took an independent study under a PhD student who was studying like virtual reality and how we could apply that to like to make like a new like social platform or something like that. And then through that like independent study, which is like where you just work under that PhD student to do research, I guess I got to see like a more like a real world application use case for CS, which got me really interested in be like, oh, I can make a difference. I can make an impact on the world. So that got me into like CS and also like the human computer interaction thing, where I could see how like what my work can help like bridge authentic social connections with other people. So that's like another course that really like got me interested.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. And it's really cool because for reference, the introduction CS class that everyone's talking about is actually what CMU CS Academy is based off of. So it's really cool because, you know, you guys are all getting the experience that we're all having with, you know, really getting an introduction into CS through, you know, making these cool projects and these cool puzzles throughout. So it's really awesome. And yeah, I think Yumi was talking a little bit about this. So have any of you guys had experience with research, and how have you used CS in your research? And just for reference, what research is basically in school, in like universities and colleges, what a lot of these, you know, like teachers are doing. Teachers in university and college are called professors. And basically what they're doing is they're doing research, which essentially is helping us like gradually expand more about what we know and how we can, you know, apply CS to further figure out things. And that's a pretty broad thing that we're like talking about, but actually research is usually really specific. Usually we're really trying to chip away at these problems gradually because there's so many different problems in the world that people can solve. So yeah, research is just this really high level way of asking more questions and figuring them out. So yeah, has anyone here had experience with research, and how has computing impacted your research?
Okay, I guess I can start. So I've worked on 2 projects so far. So the first one was the one I talked about, which was called virtual reality, and then using So to go a little bit into the details, it was about using VR and using your biosignals, so such as your like heartbeat, your like, I don't know, your breathing rate, stuff like that, to help kind of like in this pandemic, it's hard to kind of meet people in person. So we were trying to build a platform where you can use like these like biometrics to help like create authentic social connections with each other by sharing some more intimate or like personal like information. And then for me, I was on like the coding side of building this VR thing. And then it was I guess like my first like actual chance at building and working in VR. So it got my feet wet in terms of like building VR, but also like user testing and like talking with others about like communicating my work to other like end users or to other professors about what I'm doing, what I'm trying to do, stuff like that. So that gave me like an introduction to kind of like user research in a way, which is like also another important part of like CS in terms of like communicating your work and getting feedback. And then my second one that I'm currently working on is like a cybersecurity game-based intervention. So that's more of, we were trying to answer the question of how we can help motivate user behavior changes in terms of like improving their cybersecurity habits, such as like not using a password or using a strong password, stuff like that. And then for that one, I guess it was like kind of similar in terms of I was coding the game and I was also in charge of user testing. But in terms of this one, I think I learned more about how to work in a team because we're working in a team of 5 right now. So it's different working like programming alone in terms of programming with other people because everyone has different like coding styles and you have to communicate what you're doing, like communicate your bugs, like fix other people's bugs. So it got me more experience in terms of how to work together in terms of coding.
Yeah, so I can go next. I haven't done any research, although fingers crossed I am meeting with a professor soon. But I wanted to take like an undergraduate's like perspective who hasn't done research in terms of we still interact with research frequently. Professors will have us read some papers because like everything that we are learning was at one point like the cutting edge of computer science. And it's always so gratifying to see like as you learn more and more, you can basically keep up, not with all the specifics, but keep up with the idea of what's going on in research and know where's the cutting edge. And also it's very interesting to see like what I'm learning in 2 classes over is still being used in whatever I'm learning. There are always very universal concepts in computer science that every researcher will have to deal with in terms of computational complexity or like just some sort of optimization goal. There's always going to be that sort of stuff. And then research kind of applies that in different and really interesting ways.
I could also talk a little bit about research. So I have been on 2 main research projects. Like, so my first ever research project was when I was actually away from CMU. I was doing like a maritime studies, and I did like sort of an image processing kind of research with a marine geology professor. So it was very different in the team dynamics in that like I was the only person who was actually come from like a computational background. And my main job was actually to figure out where a particular type of lava was on the image. So like when I first started the project, I basically had 0 knowledge of like actual automatic image analysis. I did some little things in labs like in school, but that was like a completely like new sort of experience. So had a lot of I guess in situ, like on the fly learning. But anyways, it was still very fun because you gain so much knowledge. I think like just being like studying firsthand or like you have to use certain skills to solve your problem just motivate you to learn that skill very quickly. And also I think it's kind of wonderful to have like programming tools that you can create to help like other researchers, right? Because research is really like a community, like a shared work. So it's very satisfying that like you can produce something that can help others. And at the same time, it's so different because previously in classes or in school, you write code, you submit it for homework. It's mainly just, you want the end result. But then for, if you want to program a tool or create a pipeline for other people, you want your code to be clean and to be like usable and understandable by other people. So I actually think in that regard, working on CS Academy has really helped me to sort of like produce code that other people can read and is clean. So I think I'm very, I really appreciate the experience on CS Academy. And right now I'm working on a project, it's actually my thesis project on automatic detection of a disease through analyzing voice signals. So it's a completely, I guess, a different topic, but again, it's utilizing, the power of computation to analyze some data that's not previously attempted. So I think, yeah, that shows you like the potential of CS in real life research and applications.
Yeah, I can also take on this question even as the host, just because research has been a really big part of like my CS undergrad experience. And again, yeah, like even in one of my classes, there's this wonderful introduction to computational biology class at CMU. And our end project for that class is literally to, write a research paper. And it's a really cool class because you just are kind of baffled at the fact that this is what you have to do. But yeah, that was a really cool initial experience in research, because basically we had to work in a small group of team, a small team. And what we did was we actually applied this package to some COVID-19 data in order to find out what types of cells were elevated and what types of markers were elevated with this specific type of sequencing called scRNA sequencing. It's not, but yeah, basically what we were doing was we were applying tools that other researchers created and putting up our analysis of what the tools kind of told us. So this was really cool, because although we weren't necessarily making the tools, we were still learning how to apply them and what insights we can get from applying these tools. So that was really cool. And that wasn't even a designated research project. That was literally just a class. And so that was really awesome. And another kind of interest of mine has been CS education. And so while I also work on CMU Academy, I also really was interested in trying to get on CSEd research projects. And so there's this one that basically we are trying to make a program that really helps students reflect on their cultural identity as they program. And this is called culturally responsive computing. And what I was doing for that was doing data analysis to understand what specific exercises and what specific programs really help students understand, reflect on their cultural heritage. So that was a really cool project because, it's really applicable to CMU CS Academy and other, academies regarding CS. And it really is important for people to, reflect on their cultural identity, especially if they want to pursue CS for, their communities. So that was kind of my experience with CS is in research is really applying it with data analysis and really seeing how using other people's tools can make it so much easier to analyze and find out more about the world. So yeah, that's kind of thing about research. And I guess I'm gonna open up to a new question now. And this is kind of gonna be an interesting question, but I guess for everyone here, have you ever had any hurdles with learning CS and how have you overcome them?
Well, I think a lot of people here will have had the same experience coming to especially CMU. Math is a big part of computer science, and that it just doesn't compare to the math that you learn in high school. It's a different brand of math entirely. So it's very exciting to learn, but it's something that you learn very quickly. And so, and especially being around students that were in like competition mathematics and stuff like that, you always feel like you're on your back feet or that you don't belong there. That imposter syndrome is a very common feeling around here. And I think the way that I and a lot of my friends got around it is exactly that, having friends to kind of like share how you're feeling and collaborate and like make each other get better. Also, I don't think any professor is going to like actually put you down. I think the idea of professors is they really want you to learn this. So professors are always like one of the best resources you can use if you're not feeling sure about something or you don't feel like you belong.
Yeah, I definitely second that. I think imposter syndrome is like basically everywhere, really. Especially I think within CS and like, but I think so. It's good that like why you like. Okay, so the biggest hurdle I had was when I first started doing CS at like CMU, and that the class, the intro to programming classes, were actually pretty intensive to begin with. So like the first 3 or 4 weeks, like the learning curve is just insane. You're like, oh my God, I learned all these new concepts about CS. What am I gonna do with them? And I still remember that was my freshman year, the 3rd week, I couldn't really finish an exercise and just had the thought, I can't really do this. Should I just quit now? Like that feeling. But like actually, I think for a lot of people this apply, like the learning curve will like taper and it will gradually become like smooth and you're like, hey, I can actually learn things bit by bit. It's just like the initial fear of like getting into a completely new subject that just makes you intimidated. But I think it's actually true for learning every new thing, right? But like it's sort of the CS, math, STEM thing that a lot of people sort of think, hey, if I can't do it like the first day, am I just not, built for it? But I don't think that's true. It takes a lot of practice, a lot of experience, and once you're in it with a very like just like Rohan said, like with a very friendly and supportive community, I think you can really like learn it if you give it enough time. So yeah, that's what I think.
I also think that while CS has a lot of foundations in math, there's still a completely new, different way of thinking, like different than what you're used to. And I guess that's kind of covered to an extent in the fact that the math that you use in computer science is different from your typical, arithmetic that you learn in high school. But I guess just kind of wrapping your head around, the step-by-step process of like executing this line and then executing this line. Something that I experienced for a little bit and that I've seen is that I guess programming in particular doesn't perfectly match up with anything else that you've done in another class in terms of the skills that you might have to have or the task that you might have to accomplish. You kind of have to design a step-by-step process in a very, explicit and formal way, i.e. code, in order to accomplish some task. Whereas, maybe before you had been given kind of the building blocks for solving an equation or, writing an essay, maybe you've been given a topic. And I would say that coding is almost kind of like a mixture of that, essay kind of mentality of you have a clean slate and you have to do everything from scratch, mixed in with that different kind of math. And I think, kind of wrapping your head around that different style of thinking is a hurdle to overcome. And I definitely, needed support at times because there were some questions and problems that I, really couldn't understand and had a lot of trouble with. But thankfully, there was a lot of support with the teaching assistants and the professors, and in some cases, other peers who are able to, give me assistance and help me understand how to solve these problems.
And linking to what Tate said, I felt like to me, when I came into CMU, I originally thought computer science is a very narrow field of study. You learn about code and you write a program. But I think by this point, like everyone sitting over here, Maggie, Stephanie, Tate, they mentioned about computer science and biology. Caleb is in ECE. And Yumi mentioned about human-computer interactions. Computer science, I feel like to me, is a very broad field of study. And in knowing that there's a lot of connections that you can build with computer science, I feel like that has helped me the most coming to CMU and studying about computer science.
Yeah, definitely. I like bouncing off what Sean was saying. Like, it really is this cool field because you can see how it can be applied to pretty much anything. And like, it can be applied to biology, chemistry, physics. Those are just core sciences, but like also design, art. You know, you guys are, a lot of you guys are literally making some of the most amazing pieces of art using using these graphics and using programming. So it really is, there's this field where you can apply anything to it, and you can, help solve a lot of problems with these fields using computing. So that's definitely like something that's really important to like think about when you're doing CS. But yeah, and like personally, a struggle that I had with CS was definitely like trying to really like internalize that everything is an algorithm. And you kind of have to, like, even when you're writing an essay, you need to, first write the thesis, and then you need to start writing the, make each of the claims and everything. And if you think about that, that's similar to what you're doing with CS. It's just maybe there's a bigger margin of error you can have. Like, you can be a little bit more chill about what you're doing. You can make a little bit more minor mistakes. Well, CS is really, you have to go line by line and make sure everything is working right. And you have to make sure your algorithm has, each step is clearly outlined. And it's not only clearly outlined, but it's actually like coded. So yeah, that's definitely something that is, was something that was really difficult for me. But like over time, it is something that, you just got to be like a little bit more precise and everything. So yeah, it was a little bit of a learning curve, but it's always great to like keep feeling like you eventually get to that next step of really, understanding. So that's definitely something to feel proud about. And yeah, that's kind of connected to our next question. What has been something that you've been really significantly proud about, like building or working with CS? And this can be a term project, or this can just be a game, or anything that you guys have worked on.
Yeah, I would say that one of the things that I'm proudest of is the project I made in that Fundamentals of Programming in Computer Science class. So while we had learned like all the basics of of how to program in Python, the project is very open-ended in that you can basically make anything that you want, as long as it has like a user interface that you can interact with. And so I kind of experimented with lots of different things called modules, which are basically modules and libraries are pieces of code, or potentially really large chunks of code that other people have written that you can kind of put into your code using something called an import. The details aren't super important, but basically I was able to take some other things that people had wrote, like, for example, audio analysis and playing audio, and kind of insert those into my project, because I created something called Bagpipe Hero, because there's a big Scottish presence, like heritage presence on CMU's campus, and the Kilty band and the pipes and drums. I kind of ignited my interest in that, I think, and I created a game where you can insert your own bagpipe music files, and the game will analyze the like the wave file, and it will create a custom level. And I definitely hit a lot of roadblocks with it, especially with trying to get the music synchronized with all the notes that were being generated and trying to represent all of the note stuff in a way that was clean and actually made sense, which it sort of ended up doing in the end. Not entirely, but once I got through that and put together a project that worked, it felt really satisfying for everything to kind of come together. And it was awesome to know that everything I had written was my work, and it was like 1,000 lines of code. So it was definitely a big triumph, and I would say it's probably the thing that I'm the most proud of, or one of them.
Well, one of the projects that I'm most proud of has kind of been a term-long project in my search engines class, where we kind of build up a search engine from a very basic thing that can just do kind of what was the state of art maybe like 60 years ago. And then we continue to build up and add more techniques that we learn each week, and especially like adding machine learning and stuff that I'm especially interested in as an AI major. That's been really cool to see, because it's kind of the experience in software engineering as well. If you write really sloppy code in the first week, you're kind of hamstrung throughout the rest, because you need to go along with that idiosyncratic way of thinking. So it really taught me to be thoughtful with how I structure things, but also to be able to like concretely implement whatever I feel like doing.
I want to take a different turn on this. My favorite project I think so far is like a web dev project from all the web development class, where we got to like work with real life client. So I was kind of in charge with most of the coding part, but I think it's really cool to see like from a very technical sorry about that. From a very technical background, I can also work with people, like work with clients and try to provide them with a solution that might work with them. So like if working with people is something that you are interested in, that's you don't have to think of like with CS, you can only work with a laptop all day or things like that. That's definitely not the case. You can always work with clients or just in general, however you want to work. So yeah.
If we can count the little tiny exercises I made on the CS Academy content team as projects, I'd say I'm pretty proud of them. I think like just when I first started working on content team, like everything was new. Like even though I had Python experience, it's still kind of like difficult to think of, hey, what is a good like image or like a graphics that can represent what I want to teach students, or the concept that needs to be incorporated into the unit. So it was kind of rough starting, like when I first started, but like as you go on, it will become like easier and easier sort of to think of something like that teaches, or that takes in the concept you want to incorporate in. But then I think I spent like pretty much a month in the summer creating a lot of exercises. That was like one of my summer jobs. And that was when I first realized, hey, there are so many like artistic or like choices or things about visual that you can incorporate into the exercises, and just trying to make them, I guess, better, trying to improve on the previous exercises. So yeah, I think, like if by creating these graphics and images, I can help with CS education. That's like, I think one thing I'm very passionate about and really proud of.
And adding on to what Helen and Maggie said, I personally enjoy similar things. For me, I was in a translation group called Go Minor, in which we try to translate technical articles, things like what's on non-fungible tokens, GitHub best practices, things like that. And to me, like I think Helen mentioned about computer science, it's not just sitting in front of the computer and coding things up. I felt like there's another perspective in which we take in a concept and then filter or translate it into a better one or a more understandable one and help other people to understand. And I found that to be very enjoyable.
Yeah, and it looks like we're, we're about to like kind of wrap up our session, but I'm really curious, and this is definitely something that we should all a little bit speak on, is, why is CS education or CSEdWeek important to everyone here? And like, why do you think that, everyone should have a little taste of CS education?
Yeah, I'll take this one. I think it's vital that everyone at least has some CS education because so I am majoring in electrical and computer engineering, but I'm also doing some materials engineering on the side. Like that's really interesting to me. And so I'm like talking to these professors about what they're doing. And one of them is doing crystallography, which is I have this crystal and I'm trying to look at the structure of it, the atomic structure, blah, blah, blah. And so you put it into the $1 million machines and you run a ton of tests. And I was like, that seems really grueling. Is there like an automated way to do this? And he's talking about all these challenges of trying to automate this kind of process where you're trying to identify this because all this stuff can go wrong and it might do this wrong, might do this wrong. But then at the end he goes, but yeah, there's this professor over there that's trying to automate this entire thing through CS and doing it a software problem. And that really baffled me because this is like a hardware, it's a crystal, it's a thing. It's like, what CS are you talking about? I'm putting into this machine. There's what code? And then he's like, but by using code in this completely unrelated field, I can make my life a lot easier, solve a lot more problems a lot faster. And so I think it's like, even if you go into something as random as material science, code pops up. And I think code will pop up in almost every field you try to explore. And so that's why I think it's just so vital to at least have a fundamental understanding of how to code and what code does.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like, I would think like, by interacting with marine geoscientists or actually I'm minoring in linguistics. So I also like do some projects on linguistics. When I talk to people in these different fields, they all think like, now we have so much data, like so many data sets out there. Like we have so much information we can analyze and we can look at. And it really doesn't work anymore where you only have like 10 data points and you're like, okay, I can just plot them out and I can do some manual analysis on them. Like, I think it's really, we're ushering into like a new era where we have so much information and so many measurements so cheaply made out there. So like, in order to discover new things, to find what those data sets are telling us, you gotta use like programming or data science or all these like new tools that you can yourself create and develop and to really sort of chip away like what's the secret that's waiting for us out there. So yeah, I think it's definitely very important. And as a person who did not have CS education like before college, I think sort of getting it, I hope more people can have a taste at it, like at least try it. So
yeah, so the reason I think a CS education is so important is because it's touching, like you guys touched on, it's touching just about every part of our society and culture. And having a good grip on how it's doing that is crucially important for even for the non-technical people like policymakers. It's important to understand like what you're facing, especially as someone in the field of AI. I feel like there are a lot of ethical dilemmas that you need background and understanding on to really tackle that. Even if you're not the one coding the robot or whatever, you need to know why Tesla's autopilot made that choice or like what the framework is that would make such a choice. And I think we see this with a lot of policymakers right now. They don't have a great grasp on technology. I think that's going to be so crucial going forward that like some bit of CS education is definitely going to be important to stay relevant in just about any field that you choose.
One of the things I think CSEdWeek is important for is actually getting the chance to explore every field that you might be interested in, because I think high school and college are the first tend to be the first parts of your education where you really get to start defining what classes you take, things that you learn, at least to some extent, and a lot more in college. And I think that, I didn't get the chance to take computer science in high school, and I underwent several changes in the idea for what I was going to do as a career just in high school alone. And coming to college made me realize that, none of those were what I actually wanted to do. And I wonder where I would have been had I had the chance to take computer science in high school and realize that I was interested in it, or at least, have the curiosity to and kind of background to dive into it deeper in college, and then, make the decision to make the switch earlier. Because now I have to go for even more school. But, if you're able to get exposure to computer science in in high school, I feel like that sets you up for more success, in that you have this skill, first of all, that you can apply in anything that you do, as several other people have already mentioned. But it also gives you the chance to really get the full scope of career-wise what you might be interested in doing, and it gives you a head start, and helps you find what you're passionate about sooner. And I think that sooner you can find what you're passionate about, the more time you get to spend enjoying it for the rest of however long you want to do it.
Yeah, personally for me, similar to some other people, I got a little bit of CS exposure like maybe junior year of my high school, but again, like I feel like it's always something that could have started a little bit sooner. And it's just like really important to me that everyone, has the opportunity if they want to, they can really try and just see what it is, and like, have a taste of pretty much everything that they want to, pursue. And for me personally, a reason why it's really important is, as I was talking about before, like it really has changed my way. Like CS has really changed my perspective of approaching pretty much anything, like any other subject, whether it's writing an essay or doing math problems. I never used to think of, math even as an algorithm. I would just be like, but now I'm really like, oh, when you take your derivative or when you take whatever, you really have to do each of these steps, and that's how you do it. Like, and that's it's kind of like this process of memorizing algorithms, and that's kind of a lot of what you're doing in like pretty much any subject you're doing. So that's kind of why I think CS is really important, is because it's changed and shaped the way that I think about pretty much everything. And it is helping me become more like precise in some ways. So yeah, that's kind of like why I believe everyone should take a stab at CS, or why like I want to help help CS get exposed more to people through CS Academy.
Oh, I guess I'll add one more thing, because I think, so I talked about CS education because it's in every field basically, but I also think as we're moving on in the world, right, we're trying to make more progressive, better tools and robots and AI and such. And there was this really interesting thing I saw at a robotics conference. Basically, there was a video being played of a robot doing mundane tasks, vacuuming a living room, sweeping, pulling out a beer out of the fridge and bringing it to the person on the couch. And then after the video, they go, that was completely controlled by a human operator with a remote control. And I was like, okay, so what? And that turned out to be a big takeaway. The big takeaway from that was that robotics is not a hardware problem. It's a software problem. We can make the robots build cars. We can make robots clean our houses like in sci-fi movies, but we lack the software to make that intelligent enough to do it where we don't have to really interact with it. We still need that human operator behind it. And so knowing that going into the future, these robots and these AI are all software problems is a big reason why studying CS is a really great idea, because going to the future is a lot of computer science problems.
Kind of building off of that, to provide like an everyday perspective, like you're surrounded by CS basically, right? You have your Apple Watch, you have your smartphone, you have your computer. And I feel like having just like knowing even a little bit of CS kind of helps you, like if you have an idea, like, oh, what if I make an app, or what if I make a Chrome extension, or what if I make a game? Like even if you have these like small ideas or like these small dreams, if you have like CS education, like some CS, like I feel like it's easier to take the first step in like actualizing these like goals or like dreams that you have, these little projects that you have. So I feel like just even if you don't take it as like you don't make CS your career, just having CS and just having that opportunity to make it into a hobby or make it into something that you enjoy tinkering with. Like I have friends who like to make mini robots on their like weekends and stuff like that. It's a lot of fun. Like I make games with my friends like every other month or something like that. It's really fun. Like you don't need to make it into your career, but just like having it as an opportunity to kind of make it into like a lifelong hobby, or just like have like join like a community of like creators or like tinkers, like stuff like that. I feel like that's like another important thing to consider.
Yeah, and that just about wraps up our time for the session today. We really hope that you enjoyed learning more about, what undergrads at CMU are kind of interested in and what we think about CS and all these cool topics. And thank you so much again for tuning in, and we hope you have a wonderful CS Education Week.
Stephanie, before we go, I think there's a question in the chat. They were asking about
exciting.
Yes.
What was the question?
The question asks, it's from Jay. He says he teaches elementary and high school students. Like back then, what do you wish to learn about computer science that would better prepare you for college? I think everyone would have some opinion.
Yeah, I can start off with that one. CS is being applied to everything, and there's so many cool intersections. Computational biology was something that I'm really drawn to. And, you just gotta just seeing how CS is applied and seeing all these different intersections CS can have with all these different fields really makes it so that you, if you're somebody that maybe is, a little bit interested in bio and you see how much more you can do with comp bio, then it's like, wow, this is something I want to do. So yeah, I guess having that exposure to see how CS really intersects with other fields is something I really wish I had in college. Actually, I had that experience in high school, which is why I really want to do CS. So that's kind of something that I would personally do.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I wish I had learned in middle school and high school was that language and syntax aren't the end all and be all of computer science. Whether you choose Python or Java, they're really just tools to get your expression out into the world. The more important thing is to think about what you want to make with it and what the rules are that you would codify that into computer science.
I think one thing that applied to younger students might be to sort of foster this way of thinking, hey, how can I break a bigger problem into smaller components and solve each individual problems and then build up to a larger solution. I think that's pretty crucial. And I think when I was younger, I didn't really understand this, and a lot of times I get very frustrated trying to hack at a very complicated problem. But in hindsight, sort of a lot of problems can be so much more interesting if you sort of have the right way or the mindset to approach it. So I think that's also very important to maybe teach to younger students.
On a related note, I think that learning computer science in general, one of the biggest takeaways you get from it is problem-solving skills and analytical skills. So you run into a lot of bugs, you solve very open-ended problems with computer science in a very formal and mathematical way. And I think that that a way of thinking, although it is probably the most beneficial in programming, also pops up in other problems that you might solve as well. I think that taking a programmatic approach to things, like thinking about the steps that you're taking to solve some problem, be it in whatever field, in biology and I don't know, accounting, and just throwing out random fields. I think that a computational way of thinking is very valuable because it helps you become a better problem solver. It helps you to prove or to be able to tell that the way that you've done something is a good way to do it. And I think that it helps you just become more efficient at whatever you do, even if you never touch like a programming language.
Yeah, so thank you everyone for coming, and yeah, happy CSEdWeek.
Thanks, Stephanie, and thank you all for your participation and support in this event. Those of you that are watching, this is going to be available not live as well, so you can always come back to it. And we have a ton of more exciting events, one happening each day this week. So make sure to check out our Twitter at CMU CS Academy for the other offerings